Thank you for your patience. We want to welcome all of you here at the chapel as well as those that are viewing remotely. For those of you present at the chapel, if you have a cell phone with you, please place it in the silent mode or turn it off completely. That would really be appreciated. Following the service here, the interment will take place at Memorial Park Cemetery, which is located in Skokie, just a short distance away from the chapel. Our procession will form in the parking lot, and we will make sure that those cars are properly marked. The Shiva information is listed in the service folder that you received and is also on our website. Please note there's special parking instructions for the Highland Park Shiva. Officiating today is Rabbi Michael Siegel, Rabbi Dror Chenkin Gould, and Rabbi David Russo. Following this service, we'll ask the pallbearers to please step forward to help escort Mrs. Rothschild's casket from the chapel. Aubrey Palestrant, Daniel Palestrant, Sam Kurson, Yehudit Hasek, Andy Kalish, Israel Raz, Benny Belkin, and Alex Winkler.
Friends, we've come together today to honor the beautiful and rich and robust life of Tova Rothschild, who was our teacher and our friend and our advocate and our neighbor and our cheerleader. And there are so many in the room who have been touched by Tova's intelligence, her hard work, her grace, her humor. And there is no one who aches more for Tova than her family. So we open today and honoring Tova by, as a community, extending our deepest condolences to her family who loved her so well and so fiercely. We think of Michael, who was married to Tova for 55 years, and wish you memories of strength and love of your beautiful wife. We wish our condolences to Tova's beautiful children, Tomer and Stacy, Lilach, Liat, Mickey, and Andy. Tova loved all of her children, their partners, as her own also. And you as a team took care of your Ima with a kind of fierceness I have almost never seen. And to be clear, that included not only her children by birth, but also the children of her heart, who were there every inch of the way, loving her, encouraging her, and holding her up, especially in these last difficult months. Tova was a savta, and she loved her role as savta. And to her beautiful grandchildren, we hope that you'll always remember savta with love and know that everyone here will hold you through the tears, which are normal and a sign of our love. And so we think of Gabi and Shiraz, Metal, Erez, Eliana, Mati, Aviv, and Sipi. Tova was the treasured sister of Shalom Haruveni and his wife Leah, and we remember them today as she would, with love and strength. And she was also the aunt of Re'am Haruveni and Li Aloni, Ya'ela Esther Toko, and Lobsang Tashi Toko. And we wish you also comfort as you remember your beautiful aunt. She was the proud great aunt of Ella, Tseyang, and Coral Yangchen Toko, and Imai Shir Shalom, Geffen, and Mor Haruveni. And we remember and think of all of you as well as you remember your beautiful Tova. Today, Tova has, because of the grand life she lived, surely, attracted also the presence and the adoration of so many leaders of our Jewish community, which she put first and she built. I want to recognize Rabbi Benji Forrester, who's here with us, Rabbi Michael Siegel and Rabbi David Russo will be participating in today's service, and also Rabbi Andy Green, who in Phoenix was such a support, not only to Tomer and Stacy, but also to Michael and to Tova during this time. Today we gather to honor the grand and beautiful life of Tova Rothschild. Tova is treasured and remembered on such a remarkable day on our Jewish calendar. Today is the 12th of Adar. Tomorrow night will be the festival of Purim. Tova left the world, effectively, on Erev Purim. In that way, she died as she lived, with incredible poetry and love and depth and even joy. Adar is meant to be the month on the calendar which is about simcha. Mi shenichnas Adar marbim b'simcha. The one who truly welcomes the month of Adar increases their joy. How can we talk about joy in a world which is darker without Tova? How does that even make sense? Because true joy, true simcha, is measured, as they say, not by counting each day, but by making each day count. And Tova made each day count. Tova brought joy to her students. She brought joy to her children and her grandchildren. She brought joy to her community. Tova lived a life of simcha, and she leaves a legacy of simcha. She lived the spirit of Adar. But there's another reason it's appropriate that Tova left us just as Purim is dawning. Tomorrow night we'll read the story of Esther, a woman of unparalleled courage who served the Jewish people with audacity and dignity and unfathomable bravery. Tova was rather like that too. Esther's adopted father, Mordechai, asked her, Umi yodea, im la'et kazot higat lamalchut. Who knows if you became the queen for a moment just like this? In other words, who knows if your whole life's destiny was leading to this leadership opportunity because you were uniquely needed? Who knows if Tova's whole life built piece by piece so that she would become the leader she was? Who knows if she was needed exactly for this moment, the one in which she lived and led? If she was needed to teach, if she was needed to laugh, if she was needed to love, if she was needed to encourage, if she was needed for every single student she touched, which is simply an innumerable amount. Tova Rothschild led the Jewish people with audacity and dignity and unfathomable bravery, just like Esther. Our world is better, and our people are stronger, and our hearts are more full of simcha, because Tova Rothschild arrived for this moment, and Tova Rothschild created this moment. We are in the depths of unshakable sorrow, and yet her memory is a joyful blessing. We'll turn to Rabbi Michael Siegel to lead us in Psalm 121.
The Kotzker Rebbe, one of the great Hasidic masters, once taught that there are 3 ways you can mourn for a person. You can mourn in silence, you can mourn in tears, and you can mourn in song. This has been a difficult period for Tova and this family. I wouldn't even deign to count the tears that have been shed or the moments of difficult silence along the way. But she was a woman of Shirah. She loved to sing, and people loved to sing with her. And so as we hear the beautiful words of a rabbi and family, what you're actually listening to is the Shirah of Tova's life, her song. So I turn to Psalm 121, and I'm going to sing the beginning of it. And if you know this psalm and you know the tune, I invite you to join with me. Esaina el harim me'ayin yavo ezri. Esaina el harim me'ayin yavo ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim v'aretz. Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim v'aretz. Al yitain lamot raglecha, al yanum shomrecha, hine lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha al yad yaminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka v'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmarcha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmar tzecha voecha, me'ata v'yad olam. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from God, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. Surely the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your protection, a guardian at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. God guards your going and coming from this time forth and forevermore. Hallelujah.
We have the privilege this morning to hear words of love from Tova's family members. And we're going to start with the very youngest, with Aviv and Mati Rothschild, her grandsons. Hurwitz. Though part of the larger Rothschild family.
Stand up. You can say your name. Say your name.
I'm Aviv. And I'm not Mati. We're gonna sing a poem. ילדים חולכים בכפר, ילדים חולכים בעיר, מוחים חם, כף על כף, ושרים ביחד שיר. טוב חיילים, כינור, גיטרה, גם אני שמח ושרה.
And Mati's going to sing a song that he would sing with Safta. Come up, you stand with him. Just stand with him. Stand with him. Go.
העננים הבו גשם לגנים, טיף טיף Tibotai, Geshem, Geshem, Listotai, La Shibolet La Ilan, Vela Perachatata, Shebagan, Hine Ananim, Geshem, Geshem, Laganim, Tibotai, Geshem, Geshem, Listotai, La Shibolet La Ilan. Vela perachatan, shebagan.
Do you want to say a sentence about Savta? Go ahead.
That Savta helped me a lot, and she always, what was I gonna say? She always helped me, and she always went with me, and sometimes she went with me to pick me up, and we went to places to get Thai food, and we would always go. When we ever slept over, she would always make French toast. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tova's granddaughter, Eliana Hurwitz. Eliana, you can stand up here too.
Hello, my name is Eliana. I'm 9 years old, one of Tova's grandchildren, and here are some things that I loved about my Savta. Sometimes she would pick my siblings and I up from school to take us to sushi. The food was always great, but what I loved the most was how she asked me about my day. I knew and felt that she was always so interested in what I had to say. Number 2. When my siblings and I slept over at Saba and Safta's house, Safta would always prepare delicious food, especially French toast. And she would always be so sweet to us. Number 3. I loved going to the botanic gardens with Safta, and she told me all the names of the flowers, and we smelled them, and I just loved spending time with her. Number 4. When Safta came to our house for dinner, she always brought delicious fruit, like mango and guava. We shared a love of fruit. I will always miss Safta, but I will continue honoring these traditions with Saba and the rest of my family.
Granddaughter, Shiraz.
Hi, Savta. היי סבתא, זה אני שירזי, ואני חושבת עליך הרבה. אני יודעת כמה שזה היה חשוב. אני יודעת, אני אדבר באנגלית שכולם יבינו, אבל רק שתדעי, אני יודעת כמה שזה היה חשוב לך שאני אדבר ואני אלמד בעברית. אוקיי. Saptale. On my right hand, I'm wearing the bracelet, which was the last piece of jewelry you wore. Yesterday morning, I was in the room when the mortician came to bring you here. He
saw your wrist and asked about the bracelet. I told him I'll take it. He took it off your wrist and gave it to me. I'm sure you remember that week before you passed. I came home from California. You passed yesterday on Tuesday, March 13th, and I came back to Phoenix from California exactly a week earlier on Tuesday, March 4th. Ima picked me up from the airport and drove home quickly because it was 8 p.m., so it was getting late and around the time that you start to get tired. When I got home, you were positioned so serenely like a queen. One could even call you Queen Esther, sitting in your wheelchair. I ran from the garage down our long hallway in Phoenix and gave you a big chibuki. I then proceeded to take off one of my bracelets from my stack of 5. I gave you one and kept 4 for myself. The one I gave to you said, "Free them now," in reference to the over 50 hostages still in Gaza. I thought this was a fitting bracelet to give you because of your deep empathy and emotional connection to Israel, our homeland, and the place of your formative years as a child, young adult, and then married woman to my Saba Hamaksim Shali, Saba Michel. Yes, Safta, you cared about the hostages, but that's only the tip of the iceberg. You showed me what love and empathy look like when you sat down with me for hours at a time, even if it was only to read 3 pages from the Hebrew book that I was reading at the time, Ivy Vabin. That was a real work of love, and you showed a lot of savlanut. Saftale, I hope I make you proud, but I want you to know that you made and continue to make me very proud. I remember as an elementary school student, I always walked around school proud and excited to be there because my Safta was a teacher, and as her granddaughter, I should respect the work she does by being a good learner and student. Safta, you have taught me so much. I wouldn't name everything you taught me because I want to do that in private with you, and that would take a long time. But I'd like to highlight just a few things. First of all, to cherish my Judaism and be an active, proud female Jewish participant in my keilah. Second, to treat my parents with kavod and to honor the great family I come from. You always spoke of Saba Moshe, and I want you to know that you are my Saba Moshe, and one day when I have my own family, I will share and recall stories of my Safta's Tova. 3, to love all things living, flowers, trees, and anything that's living, especially the kumquat trees at the Biltmore. Safta, I'm so proud that you're my Safta, and I have the honor of carrying on your legacy. I love you very much, and I love my 18 years of knowing you and our time together. I'm excited to share the rest of my life with you as it unfolds. Harbe ahava v'chibukim shirazaleh.
Granddaughter Gabby DeKoven.
Hi, I'm the eldest granddaughter, so I had the longest time, and obviously that means I'm extra special. So I am studying anthropology, and in part of that study, I think a lot about archives and how we can remember things in the best way possible. So if there's one thing I've learned from studying archives, it is that the perfect archive is impossible. We try, with all the tools we have, to document, to preserve, to create a record that holds the weight of a life. But life is too vast, too full of love, of laughter, of stubborn refusals to take just one more bite of dessert, of whispered love yous in final moments. Or more accurately, love you. No archive could ever hold my Safta Tova. No collection of photographs or recordings could ever contain the full depth of her presence, the way she made a room warmer just by being in it, the way she carried Judaism not just as knowledge, but as something felt, something lived. And yet, I have tried. Maybe it was subconscious at first, recording the sound of our family's laughter, of clinking glasses, of hurried voices encouraging her to taste something sweet. A wedding, a house full of all 16 of us, the last time we would all be together under one roof. It was a moment of celebration, of love, but also, in some quiet, unspoken way, a moment of preservation. But as I tried to build this archive, I kept feeling that it was somehow incomplete. It was not just the impossibility of capturing a life in an archive, it was that I started too late. I only began recording when Safta was already in declining health, when the vibrancy I so desperately wanted to document had already begun to slip away. The voice I had hoped to preserve was quieter, her presence more fragile, and for a moment, I feared that I had missed my chance. But then I realized I had been recording her my entire life, not with a microphone, not with a camera, but in the way I move through the world, in the way I speak Hebrew, because she taught me to, because she insisted it mattered, in the way I set a table for Shabbat, in the way I understand that love is not just something you say, but something you do. She built her own kind of archive, not in boxes of letters or stacks of paper, but in the lives she touched, in the ketubot she meticulously crafted with delicate paper cutting, in the beaded jewelry that carried the imprint of her hands, in the Torah she studied with near rabbinic devotion. Every piece of art, every lesson taught, every Shabbat table she set with care, these were the things she left us, tangible and intangible, a legacy of beauty and meaning. And of course, she left us my Saba Michael. Their love was something beyond what I've ever seen, so full, so unwavering, that even in her final moments, her last words were simply, love you. A love that was not just spoken, but lived. And that is why we are all here together now. Even in mourning, there is warmth in this family. Even in grief, there is joy in remembering. That is the archive my Safta built. Not a perfect one, but a living one that breathes in the stories we tell, in the traditions we keep, in the love that will never leave us. So today we gather, not just to mourn, but to add to her archive, to hold on to the sounds, the images, the memories that made her who she was. And while I may spend hours playing recordings and gathering photos, I know the truth. Safta Tova's life is already perfectly preserved in each and every one of us. May your memory be a blessing, though already it is.
Amen. If any one of us was remembered with those words from grandchildren, we would know what a good life we had lived. We'll turn to Tova's niece, Yaela Toko.
טובה, זה לא יאומן שביום רביעי, בדיוק לפני שבוע, ראם נפטר. והיום אני עומדת כאן בצד השני של העולם ומדברת בהלוויה שלך כל כך בלתי נתפס. המשפחה שמרה, דאגה וטיפלה בך בכזו מסירות יוצאת דופן לאורך כל הדרך. ולא רצו לספר לך על מה שקרה לראם, כדי שלא תיכנעי לצער. טובה, רק את ומיכאל, עם הקשר האוהב והתומך שיש ביניכם, יכולים ליצור כזו משפחה מיוחדת, מלוכדת, יפה וטובה. כזו שנלחמה וטיפלה בך, ולא רצו להרפות ולשחרר עד הרגע האחרון, וכזו מסירות ואהבה. טובה, בשבילי, את הדודה הכי טובה שיכולתי לבקש. כמה שגרת רחוק, ככה קרובות היינו. היית לי תמיד הדודה, אבל גם האימא, אחרי שאימא שלי נפטרה, וגם חברה טובה. שתמיד התייעצתי בך, והעצות שנתת לי היו חדות וברורות. את היית הקשר שלי למשפחה, לסבא וסבתא, לאבא שלי. כשאת נולדת הייתם 4 במשפחה, 2 הורים ו2 ילדים, ונשארת האחרונה. כשאני נולדתי היינו 2 הורים ו2 ילדים, ועכשיו אני נשארתי האחרונה. ואולי גם מה שחיבר בינינו זה שנולדנו באותו יום ובאותו חודש, והבנו אחת את השנייה. תמיד ידעתי שאת תהיי בשבילי בכל רגע שלי בחיים, תמיד תמכת ועזרת. היה לך הרבה חוכמת חיים. תמיד כשהגעת לארץ לבד או עם מיכאל, הייתם מביאים לנו מתנות נדיבות ותמיד דאגתם לנו. תחושה שאנחנו לא לבד, שיש בארצות הברית משפחה שתמיד תהיה שם בשבילנו, שלא נהיה לבד. אני אוהבת אותך ואני אתגעגע אליך מאוד. אני אתגעגע לשמוע את קולך בטלפון. אני אתגעגע לסיפורים שלך על הילדים והנכדים. אני אתגעגע אלייך, למי שאת, החברה שלי, דודה טובה.
We'll hear from Tova's son-in-law, Mickey Hurwitz.
Hi, I'm Mickey, Liat's husband, and I have 2 quick reflections on being Tova's son-in-law. First, is when I married into this family, the family that Tova built with Michael. I didn't know what I was signing up for. To be clear, I've loved every minute. And let me tell you about my first lesson, really, of what it meant to be part of this family. It was when we were coming up with the invite list for our wedding. We, reasonably made an allocation to the Chicago contingent, the Israeli community. Many of you are here in this room. And quickly that list kind of got longer and longer. And we had to find a bigger venue, I think. And the comment was, yeah, it's Chicago. They're not going to come all to Miami. But all of you came. And it's very nice seeing many of you in this room were at our wedding. It's such a beautiful testament to this community that really the Rothschild family and Tova in particular were instrumental in building. Same thing happened at the bris of our boys, where again we wanted to have a small intimate gathering at our house, and Tova's answer was, okay, we'll have a different party for all of our friends. And we did that, and Rabbi Russo was there, and it was just such a beautiful thing. Again, recognizing the importance of these moments, the simchas in our life. The Rothschild family, rolls deep, as they say, and so much so that I think 10 days ago, less than 2 weeks ago, my sister got married, and the Rothschilds and Tova and Michael were like, we're coming. And we're like, well, are you sure? And they came and they showed up, and it was such a beautiful thing where, again, Tova never wanted to miss a chance to celebrate a simcha and respect the traditions of our culture. My second reflection is about really her legacy as an educator. I see it every day in her grandchildren. I see it in my kids, in their respect for Torah and tradition. And really, we'd be anywhere, out and about, and somebody would come up to her and say, you were my Hebrew teacher, with adoration and respect for the learning that came from her. And so I'm going to conclude with a piece that Tova would have hopefully very much approved of, which is a little bit of gematria. So the name Tova has the numerical equivalent of 22. 22 is the number of letters in the Hebrew alphabet. And what better symbolism than the building blocks of our Hebrew language, of Torah, of education, in her name. And so I reflect on kind of the remarkable legacy of all the people that she has touched and continues to touch. Thank you.
Tova's daughter-in-law, Stacy Palestrin.
Mickey, I could have warned you about the guest list for the wedding. We got the same exact line. It's Phoenix. How many people are going to schlep from Chicago to Phoenix? And we had a huge, wonderful, warm wedding with many of you there. For those of you who were not at my wedding, I'm Stacy. I'm Tomer's wife. And Tova's daughter-in-law. I had the distinct honor of being with Tova and Michael for the last few months. Tova and Michael came for a visit in the middle of December, and Tova fell ill. We took her to the hospital. She was there for a few days. And then afterwards, the decision was for Tova and Michael to stay with us. And I said, because there was no way that she was getting on a plane, and I said, stay till Pesach. The weather in Phoenix is so much nicer than Chicago in December, January. Stay with us until you get better. So my family, my children, Shiraz, Meital, and Erez, had the real honor and pleasure of living with Tova and Michael for the last few months. Exactly a week ago, last Wednesday, I woke up and I said, I need to make Tova chicken soup. She must have chicken soup. So I went to our grocery store and I bought all the ingredients for chicken soup. And I put the bags in the car and I sat down to drive home, and I just had this urge to write out my thoughts. So I grabbed a piece of paper and I wrote down a few reflections, which I'd like to share with you. So this was March 5th in the parking lot of Fry's grocery store. When you make chicken soup for your mother-in-law on Wednesday, because you aren't quite sure she will make it to Friday, you get picky about the carrots. Too skinny? The onions, are they sweet enough? The leeks, add one more. You buy some grape juice too, just for a taste of Shabbat, which she can sip through a straw. Perhaps chicken soup for the soul can really mean just that. As you wish the soul Nisiyat Tova and leave her with one last taste of Shabbat. So I did make that chicken soup, and I put it in a tiny little cup with a straw. She had 2 sips. I said, Tova, how was it? She said, too salty. But in the 20 years I've been married to Tomer, we've had beautiful Shabbats together. We've celebrated Shabbat in Chicago, Beijing, Israel, Phoenix. And I'm so grateful for those weekly Shabbats. The table, her table and my table, was always open. The food was always delicious. And I truly believe that will be Tova's legacy. We'll have many more Shabbats to come. And Tova, in her infinite creative energy, had made us a challah cover when we got married, and also a platter that said Shabbat Shalom for our challah. And those will be part of our weekly Shabbats. So I just hold on to that legacy of Shabbats and family, sweetness of wine, and maybe slightly salty chicken soup as we celebrate as a family together.
We'll say the 23rd Psalm. Invite Rabbi David Russo to lead us in the Hebrew, and then we'll join together in the English that you'll find in your pamphlets.
If you know the words, I invite you to sing along with me. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, binot esher bitzeni, al mei menuchot yanahaleni. Nafshi eshovev, nafshi eshovev, Yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo, gam ki elech b'geitz al mavet, lo irara, ki ata imadi, Shivtecha umishantecha, Shivtecha umishantecha, Hema yenachamuni, Taroch lefanai shulchan, Taroch lefanai shulchan, Taroch lefanai shulchan, neged tzorerai, dishanta bashemen roshi, dishanta bashemen roshi, dishanta bashemen roshi, kosi revaya, Achtov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai v'shavti beveit Adonai v'shavti beveit Adonai Liorech Yamim.
Together we can read the English. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We'll turn to Tomer to share words from a son.
למות זה טבעי. כל אדם בשלב מסוים מגיע לסוף יומיו. Dying is natural. Every person at some point arrives at the end of their days. This is what my mom had been telling us for the past few months. Ima was very philosophical about this last period of her amazing life. She shrugged all of the death-related discussions with the same sentence. Everyone must die at some point. This is natural. Clearly, she did not leave us any explicit instructions for today, not a posthumous letter to read, and yet we know exactly what she wanted and what she believed. We can seek guidance through what Ima said consistently in nearly every situation for many decades. Her constant motto was, Adif shitzchaku alai מאשר שירחמו עליי. It's better that people should laugh at me than take pity on me. Ima echoed this phrase, which originated from her father, my Saba Moshe, all the time. Better that they should laugh at me than take pity on me. And I understand this not simply as a preference of A over B, but as a defiant attitude, a life philosophy that is quintessentially Ima. I don't care if people laugh. In fact, I prefer that they laugh with me, or if necessary, even at me, but please don't pity me. I don't want to be pitied because looking back at my life, I recognize how good it has been and how blessed I was with so much fortune. I think back to what Ima said 7 short months ago in the summer, last August, when so many friends, so many people in this room gathered with our family to celebrate her 80th birthday. She was sitting at Mickey and Liat's home, and she said, "In life, there are highs and lows, moments of great joy and also hardships. I don't deserve pity. I don't want to be pitied. I prefer to laugh, and I want to celebrate what has been good." Some of you are laughing because this accent may sound foreign to you. Others in the room speak like this every day. And hear all of us speaking that way. So guided by this self-assured, fearless, and optimistic life philosophy, we can celebrate and remember my Ima, Tova bat Moshe v'Tzipora. I was tasked with also giving a bio, so I apologize in advance. This is going to be longer because it also includes a bio. מעשה ברבי אליעזר ורבי יהושע ורבי אלעזר בן עזריה ורבי עקיבא ורבי טרפון שהיו מסובין בבני ברק. As we read every year in the Passover Haggadah, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yehoshua and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah and Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Tarfon sat down and reclined for the Seder in Bnei Brak. My Ima's story, her notion of self, begins in her birthplace, the town of Bnei Brak. A stronghold of Haredi Jews, a densely packed, ultra-Orthodox city which neighbors Tel Aviv and is just a few miles east of Tel Aviv's magnificent beaches and cosmopolitan nightlife, where my father was born. But Bnei Brak is also an old city mentioned in the Passover Haggadah I just quoted, with all of the early Mishnaic sages seated around the table. That story is set in Bnei Brak almost 2,000 years ago and was the proud starting point of my Ima's life. And so every year at the Pesach Seder, she reads this line in the Haggadah, just as her father Moshe did so before her. Ima was born premature. She was very small and she had to struggle to stay alive. This inculcated within her, in her own words, with a fighter quality and a fierce determination. Following Gabi's footsteps, I started recording my mother about a month ago and doing as many videos as we could. And when she spoke about the early days of her life, she said, "I was a primi, only 3 pounds." She thanked her mother, Savta Tzipora, for nursing her diligently to health and her gateway to life. Ima's parents, my maternal grandparents, Moshe and Tzipora, met as distant cousins from the Polish shtetls of Chemerniki and Piszczać, about 2 hours southeast of Warsaw, near the famed city of Lublin. We were privileged to visit their hometowns this past summer as a family in a 12-person Tiul Shoroshim, a family roots tour, even before Hollywood made movies about this stuff. My grandparents, Ima's parents, made Aliyah to Israel, then Palestine, in the early 1930s, in an incredible story of bravery and love and devotion that we will save for another time. They lived in near poverty and worked in the fields or odd jobs like dishwashing and kitchen work to make ends meet, and lived what I imagine was a typical, for that period, Zionist, Yiddish-speaking, early Olim life. My mother's elder brother, Shalom, Zichrono Livracha, was born 7 years before my mom. Shalom served in the IDF, as was universally mandatory. In the 1956 war, his tank was hit, and all the other soldiers in the tank were killed, but he emerged unscathed. According to my mom, being a survivor like this shocked him, and he was changed from then on. She told me about her memory of Shalom coming home 6 weeks later, sitting with his head in his hands, and just whispering, "I don't know why I'm here. I'm not supposed to be here." Ima described him as being incredibly gentle, spiritual, and independent, also bohemian. He had so many friends and followers because of his magical quality. He was also haunted by his war experience. Later, in the spring of 1972, after my parents had moved to the United States, a few months before I was born, Shalom passed. This was a devastating tragedy for Ima and for my father and for Saba Moshe and Savta Tzipora. She was only told about his passing after I was born, so as not to alarm her and jeopardize the pregnancy. Ima was a teacher in her essence, as so many people have pointed out. Ima's teaching career began in her army service. She taught illiterate immigrants from Kurdistan in Patish, a small moshav west of Ofakim, about 11 miles where the October 7th Nova massacre occurred. Incidentally, many years ago, when I asked Ima where Patish was, or is, she smiled and she said, "Sa yashar yashar, ad sof haolam v'az pnei smola." Drive straight, straight, until the end of the world, and then turn left. She continued to serve in multiple teaching posts across Israel, from Mitzpe Ramon in the south to Kiryat Shmona in the far north near the Lebanese border. She met my father in 1964 at a party through a mutual introduction and was, in her words, besotted by the sharply ironed crease in his cotton shirts. I'm not joking. I understand this to mean that opposites attract each other. She was intrigued by a strict German Jewish upbringing, a bit straight-laced and perhaps even nerdy, though that would change later, and taken by his kindness. In my father's retelling, he was seduced by her stunning beauty, bohemian nature, and intensity. Their whirlwind romance lasted for 5 years, and they married in 1969 in Bnei Brak, and shortly after that took the deep plunge and moved to the United States. Vayomer Adonai el Avram, lech lecha martzecha umemoladetecha umbet avicha el haaretz asher areka. Adonai said to Abram, "Go forth from your native land and from your father's house to the land that I will show you." For the first 4 years or so in America, they lived in Greensboro, North Carolina, not a likely destination for a young Israeli couple. This is where Lilach and I were born. Ima taught Hebrew at the Beth David Synagogue and was a beloved teacher. My parents immersed themselves in the tight-knit Jewish community and made lifelong friends with Chico, Zmira, Lior, and Roni, Judy Hyman and Judy Hoffman, who were known to us as Judy Agdullah but Judy Aktana, Big Judy and Little Judy, and Mimi, Bill, and Amanda. This mostly American crew watched over and nurtured my parents as they fumbled through their first years as immigrants. Rumor has it that the young Tova with me in utero was chain smoking until I was born. And though inconceivable now, she smoked, I was told, throughout her early 20s in Israel. 2 packs a day. And in Greensboro, again, inconceivable, she went to Burger King every week because it was Mother's Day, mothers could eat for free, and that's how they saved money. Ima was an incredibly devoted and selfless wife and true workhorse and supported my father, who was studying engineering. Sophia halechot beta, belechem atztot lo tuchal. She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat from the bread of idleness. In 1975, the 4 of us, my parents Lilach and I, moved to Cleveland, Ohio, where Ima taught Hebrew at the Agnon School, while my father continued studying for his master's. They still lived very simply off a teaching salary and my father's first job, and with the help of their parents, bought a starter home in Shaker Heights. Home ownership, the American dream. This dream was matched by the other American dream, exploration and discovery through travel. More on that later. In 1978, we moved to Mequon outside Milwaukee for my father's first major job post-grad school. Ima continued her craft while teaching at Sinai Temple and Milwaukee BJE, the Board of Jewish Education. Liat was born, completing the 3 siblings. My parents were incredibly close to their parents. Although my father's father, Saba Gustav, had passed in 1972, a few months after I was born, the other 3 grandparents, Saba Moshe and Savta Tzipora, and Savta Sarah, spent most of the year with us in Milwaukee. They traded off in 6-month shifts of living together with us. Clearly, we learned firsthand about how to honor one's parents and how to be a devoted child. My parents made more lifelong friendships in Milwaukee with Eli and Dita, Asa, Nira, Rami, Aviva, and many others. The vast majority of their friends were Israeli immigrants, and for the 5 of us, we always spoke Hebrew at home, for the most part, even among the kids. I remember hearing my mom speak English in a parent-teacher conference in 3rd or 4th grade, and I was stunned. I simply didn't know that she could speak the English language. In 1985, after my bar mitzvah, we moved from Milwaukee to Chicago to Highland Park for a job opportunity for my mom. A promotion to be the principal at Temple Chai, and in a true show of equality between my parents, they made the move for my mom's career prospects. In the past 40 years or so here in Chicago, this is where many of you present today come into the picture. The period that you likely know very well. After being the principal at Temple Chai, she taught at Salman Schechter for many years, and in various other venues and opportunities, including the summers in the early 1980s in Camp Ramah. She was a teacher through and through, and as a professional legacy, she leaves behind thousands of students, from impoverished Kurdish refugees in 1960s Israel to a sea of adoring students across Jewish North America. She was always teaching, always. Even last week, while lying in bed, she was correcting our Hebrew reading. And this past month, when we had rabbinic visitors in Phoenix, local rabbis Alush and Rabbi Green, she sparred with them and discussed Torah with them. When she retired after a 50-year career as a teacher, she was able to dive more into her artistic pursuits, which I'll also touch upon later. And then finally, she and Abba traveled a lot. And again, more on that in a moment. As other people have said, she loved walking in nature. She used to come up to me and say, "Ta roeh et ze? You see this? Kmo kaf hayad sheli." Like the back of my hand, this is how I know Island Park. She loved fresh markets, fresh fruit, orchards, all of that. At our first extended family dinner with Stacy and me and Stacy's parents, Stacy's siblings were there. We were in Phoenix over 20 years ago before we got married. We were seated at a nice restaurant. We had a private room, quiet. There's a beautiful room. I remember that. And at some point, Stacy's sister Sarah looked across this table and said, "Tova, are you eating the centerpiece?" She was. That's the bio portion. Before I share the following stories, I want to say that these past few months have had many, many tears, and I found myself crying at times inconsolably, especially recently. And I started crying so much that I began to ask myself, why am I crying? What is making me cry? And I've basically come up with two reasons. The first is just a sense of absence. There's an awareness of loss. This is inevitable. It's the harsh reality of death. So many of us know this. And the second reason that I find myself crying is so beautiful. I usually begin crying because I'm in awe of the overwhelming love and the outpouring of care from our friends and community. When I see many of you people today, that's when I begin crying. So I'd like to share a few different stories. The first category is just called the love of Jewish tradition, community, and texts. In third grade in Milwaukee, it was a regular weekday afternoon. I had returned from school, and my mom said, "Tomer, אני חושבת שאתה יכול להתחרות בחידון תנ"ך." I said, "Chidon Tanakh? You want me to compete in the International Jewish Bible Competition? Like, I have to study the whole Tanakh?" And then she looked at me in a way that many of us know so well. She dropped her eyeglasses to the edge of her nose just as my grandfather did, and she fixed a stare at me that basically said, like, "What the hell are you thinking?" She scrunched up her face, and I realized that I'd asked a foolish question. She said, "No, you just study different assigned chapters." She was trying to calm me down. She said, "One of the main sections is called Complete the Verse. You're given the first words of the sentence, and you have to complete the second half of the sentence." I protested. I wasn't a really good Torah scholar, and besides, I faced some very stiff competition in my class alone. Out of the 12 kids in my Hillel Academy class, 3 were the children of rabbis. One of them was the scion of the great Twersky Hasidic dynasty. How could I ever stand a chance? My mom said, "Tomer, al tidag, ani azor lecha lilmod." Don't worry, I'll help you study and prepare. Ima instilled in all of us a deep love of Judaism, Jewish traditions, and especially respect and appreciation for Jewish texts. And Ima also taught us fearlessness. Kontest, schmontest. Rebbe son, shmebbe son. You just work out and you do it. Ultimately, I did not prepare for the Chidon Tanakh, but perhaps that does not even matter, because my enduring image of growing up is returning home from school. I'd sit at the kitchen table, and I'd have to report on what we had studied that day in Tanakh. My mom would be in the kitchen frantically preparing dinner, washing, chopping, eyeballing ingredients, but never truly measuring them. Fridge door opening and closing. She had a short break between her daytime teaching job at one school and her evening classes teaching Hebrew to adults. She used this short break to make us dinner and to quiz me, to initiate our mini home-style Chidon Tanakh. Alternating between the pot and the sink, the cutting board and the stovetop, she never faced me or set her eyes on me. Instead, despite the whirlwind of movement and the kitchen commotion, she listened intently as I read whatever verse we had been studying, and then without looking, and using her magical Tanakh powers and prodigious memory, she would correct my pronunciation and complete the next word in the sentence. I was captivated by Ima's seeming biblical omniscience. So now let's try this together. Don't worry, I will help you. Piha patcha b'chokhmah, b'torot chesed alashona. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the law of kindness is on her tongue. The second, I guess, stories and second theme is about Ima's artistic talent and unbridled productivity. Others have already discussed this. Ima was unbelievably creative and artistic, astonishingly so. She had 70 years of productive artistic creation, spanning multiple artistic media and genres, most of them Jewish. Hebrew calligraphy, paper cutting, ketubot, several of them, chuppah, 2 of them, challah covers, needlepoint, hundreds of intricate beading necklaces, bracelets, all of this vast artistic production. As Stacy said, think about this. Every Shabbat, we use my mom's challah cover, her challah cutting board. And as we go to have Shabbat dinner, we walk by the ketubah, which she did with the paper cut and calligraphy. She was also a prolific cook, who obviously loved cooking because it was freewheeling and it offered her a blank canvas. But she hated baking because of the precision that it demanded. I would ask her when she was in the kitchen, "What are you making? What's the recipe?" And she would look at me with the same chidon Tanakh face. A bit of cumin, garlic, paprika, salt, that's it. She never wrote anything down. As Mickey shared with us, 10 days ago we celebrated the wedding of Dahlia, Mickey's sister, and her husband Mike. My mom labored to fly to Miami, but made it happen. She made a Herculean effort to fly, and it was a major simcha for all of us. And looking at Dahlia and Mike standing under the same chuppah that Ima created for Liat and Mickey, which was passed down to Mickey's younger sister Shuli and now Dahlia, I profoundly felt how my Ima's physical nature on this world is finite. Yes, her soul will live eternally, as it does for all of us, but in Ima's case, her physical legacy lives on as well through her vast artwork. The third group of stories is about Ima's sense of adventure and unconventional being as a true iconoclast. There's a trigger warning here. The following stories contain free-spirited adventure, copious driving across country, and long-haul around-the-world flights in economy class. My mom started as a bohemian, and she remained extremely direct, transparent, authentic to the point. She was fiercely independent, and I don't think she cared what other people thought of her. Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Texas, across the border, several provinces within Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama. It takes many days and 4,000 miles to drive to the Panama Canal from Cleveland. In 1975, from Cleveland, my parents decided to drive to the Panama Canal. Perhaps they were looking to honor the coming American bicentennial with a Cross Americas trip. What can get in the way of a young couple exploring and ready for adventure? Is it driving 4,000 miles? Nah. Crossing many international borders? Nah. Zero knowledge of Spanish? And to be honest, at times a shaky command of English? Nah. Oh, yeah. They're 2 young children. I was 3 at the time. But what to do with Lilach, who was just a few months old then? The solution, they found a local young Israeli couple, Chaya and Kobi. Decades before Facebook or any modern social network, my parents drove across town, shook hands with the young couple whom they had just met, dropped off a few weeks' supply of diapers and formula, and sped off on the interstate heading south in their VW bus. You may think I'm making this stuff up or exaggerating. I am not. Adif shitzchaku alai masher shirachmu alai. It's better that people should laugh at me than take pity on me. But of course, You imagine they must have learned from the folly of their youth. In 1985, about 10 years later, history repeated itself. I was in 8th grade, Lilach in 5th grade, and Liat just learning the alphabet in 1st grade. My parents came home one night and said, Morocco. We are going to Morocco. You find a babysitter. Irresponsible? Free-range parenting? Perhaps they were giving us tools to be independent and self-reliant. After all, their parents made it from Poland and Germany to Eretz Yisrael in the 30s and succeeded. And my parents made a life for themselves in America. So why shouldn't we learn to fend for ourselves and be resourceful and entrepreneurial? They gave me the Camp Ramah phone book, which at the time was a loose collection of sheets with names and contact info printed in 12-point Courier font. And to shorten a long story, that is how we came to have Joel Brown, who was a high school senior at Highland Park High School at the time, come and babysit for us for 2 weeks in the winter of 1985 to 1986. Adif shitzchaku alai ma'asher shirachmu alai. It's better that people should laugh at me than take pity on me. My parents traveled a lot. My mom was always the willing partner to my father, and together they went everywhere. Every European country besides Iceland, but including, as my father told me, St. Petersburg, Russia, Estonia, Sweden, Norway, Morocco, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Botswana, Egypt, Jordan, countless times to Israel, Mexico, and all of Central America, obviously, Jamaica, Argentina, Paraguay, Brazil, including a memorable night in the Amazon jungle in home-crafted hammocks, Papua New Guinea, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam twice, Burma, India 3 times, over 20 visits to China, Bali, Indonesia, Australia. My mom was better at traveling than at dealing with the logistics of traveling. About 10 years ago, she was in Israel. We were living in Beijing at the time, and she said she wanted to come visit us, and we made the mistake of allowing her to buy the tickets herself. She told us, I'm landing Tuesday afternoon in Beijing, be ready. When she finally landed in Beijing, we came to the airport, obviously, to come pick her up, and I asked, Imanu, how's the flight? And she said, Al tishal, don't ask. I said, well, come on, tell me, how was it? She said, Al tishal. I said, well, tell me what happened on the flight. And she said, Kodem kol tasnu. First we traveled from Tel Aviv to Addis Ababa. Then we had 6 hours layover in Addis Ababa. Then Addis Ababa to Mumbai. Another 6 hours layover in Mumbai. And then finally Mumbai to Beijing. We took care of the travel arrangements after that. About 7 years ago, in her sense of adventure and initiative, she flew herself to Israel to join at the bar mitzvah of her friends Idit and Benny at Tal's bar mitzvah. She flew alone to Israel, arrived at Ben Gurion, drove overnight by herself to Masada so that she could arrive at Masada at dawn and surprise all of her friends. This was 7 years ago. The final story for me is that, for lack of a better term, Ima was a badass. Truly, truly fierce. Sometime in the early 1980s, when we were living in Milwaukee, Lilach was about 8 years old and got into a tiff with some of the girls in our neighborhood. It was probably some low-grade teasing, maybe bullying, but as far as I remember, nothing physical. My Ima would have nothing of it. she asked Lilach who was on the other side of this dispute. Once she had a name, she grabbed Lilach and me, although I'm not sure why I was called along, and we drove a few blocks over to this girl's house. When the door opened, my mom, standing at a generous but fearsome 4'11", was staring at the belly button of a famous basketball player who had played for the Milwaukee Bucks. Out of a sense of respect, I'm keeping his name private to preserve his dignity, but he was 6'11" and known for his size 22 shoes. Like a modern-day Midwestern version of Menachem Begin, a proud Jewish woman who would not back down despite her diminutive stature, she sat in this NBA legend's living room, presented her case, and voiced her opinion, and then finally hammered out a truce. To the parents of young children out here today, I ask you, is your child not listening to you? Are you having difficulty with your kids not respecting boundaries? If so, then go to the home of your local neighbor NBA player. Confront this player in their home in a polite but tense sit-down meeting. There is no better way to instill discipline and authority in your home. To close, a week ago, as Rabbi Dror said, Rabbi Green came to our house. He gave us a long discourse on Jewish history and the Parshat HaShavua, and after he left, my mom said in her classic way, "Nu, ma ata rotze, od yehudi tipesh." What are you going to do? Another stupid Jew. This is obviously very cynical. And Rabbi Alush from Phoenix also came to visit my mom. They spoke about my grandfather, Moshe, and the rabbi began to quote the origin of Moses' name from the book of Exodus. And I knew exactly what was happening. This was another Chidon Tanakh. The rabbi began, "Vayigdal hayeled v'tavieu lebet paro v'yeh leben v'tikra shmo Moshe v'tomar." When the child grew up, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, who made him her son. She named him. And then my mom answered, "Ki min hamayim mishitiu." I drew him out of the water. The rabbi explained that the biblical commentaries mentioned that Moses had many additional names, one of which is Tuvia. And Tuvia, of course, is an alternate derivation of Tova. So now, Tova bat Moshe v'Tzipora is connected to those who have passed before, and especially her father through a name as well. Oz v'hadar levusha v'tisachek liyom acharon. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come.
Tova's daughter Lilach.
Imale. Ima, you passed on the 11th of Adar, 5785, a month considered to be full of Jubilee, one that celebrates miracles and redemptions of the Jewish people. How can I reconcile that juxtaposition of your peaceful passing yesterday morning in bed, just 48 hours before Leil Purim? And to be clear, this is not how I would have ever started anything, but I needed to make you proud, Ima. I looked up gematria, I looked up so many things. How am I going to honor you, your life, and everything that you've created that I see here before me that lives on in me forever? So as I tried to make sense of this chaos, I remembered that just like Purim is a story of miracles, and of Jewish redemption, your life, Imale, was also a beautiful story of light and blessings and so many offerings of kindness, some obvious and some a little less, a little overt. In your physical absence, I will lean into your spiritual and felt presence and experienced memories of our life together, of your life, where I intentionally take stock of not just the obvious blessings that you gave me, all here in front of me right now, and many more, but I will grow into a greater realization of all your hidden blessings that will shine on me and others and bring me a sense of peace, joy, calm, and pride. When thinking about the light that you brought into this world, I am constantly reminded of your acts of selflessness and kindness towards our family and our larger community. You would take Liat weekly to Highland Park Hospital and light candles with the sick hospital patients so they could have a Shabbat with them at the hospital. You showed up endlessly in my life, in Tomer and Liat's lives, in Re'em and Yela's lives, in Saba Moshe Savta Tzipora's lives, and in Abba's life. The list is endless for sure. But I'm reminded of your steadfast, Ima, your steadfast commitment to me and Gabi as I navigated single parenthood while working full-time. You would come and sleep over regularly so that I could care for and provide for Gabi, no questions asked. You selflessly gave of yourself to nurse Abba back to life in the depths of COVID in 2020, 2021. Your care and rising to the occasion of your parents and Abba in times of illness taught me how to care for you, and I'm grateful that you allowed me to care for you, Ima. You were a giver for sure. Thank you for teaching me how to give too. Ima, you knew how to cook. You knew how to bring people together through your love of cooking, whether it was hosting parties with ridiculous spreads, with a million salatim, or bringing us home-cooked meals, or bringing cooked meals to those mourning losses or celebrating simchas. You shared your gift of cooking with others. Sabale, I assure you, is ready to carry on this torch and will learn your secret French toast recipe to make for Eliana, Aviv, Mati, and Sipi, who just the other day asked, who's going to make us French toast? Your cooking will live on, but this time, there might be a little bit of batir. You shared your love of the world with me. You loved fruit more than anyone I know, so much so that not only did you climb trees as a child to collect fruit, you did this even as a grown adult. We all still talk about and will forever talk about your kumquat incident at the famous Biltmore Hotel in Phoenix, as you were scoping out the site for Tomer and Stacy's wedding. After you left, they definitely had to outsource the kumquats because all the ripe ones had been plucked by none other than you, Ima. You gave us a good laugh, and again, you were just simply you, and you didn't care. You lived your life as authentically as possible. When you could no longer pluck them from the trees, however, you relished the Biltmore yogurt parfaits with some drizzled kumquat syrup and kumquats on top. You loved your family. You loved our family. You loved your family of origin. And despite leaving them for the US and building a life of your own, with us, Ima, you never let go of your ties and you never stopped nurturing your family in Israel. You loved your parents, your brother, your niece, your nephew, and to this day are considered a doda extraordinaire. Just as the hidden miracles of Purim, Ima, your blessings and love were not always overtly or expressed or immediately visible. You demanded a lot of us as children. You set the bar high and had high expectations. You insisted that we speak Hebrew, not just to you when we were growing up. You actually wouldn't answer us when we spoke to you in English. And furthermore, you expected that we would speak amongst ourselves, your new American-born children, in Hebrew. And if you heard us speaking in English, you would immediately yell from across the room or from downstairs and suggest kindly that we speak to each other in Hebrew. Yet despite all these questionably forceful acts of parenting, when I think back to my childhood and my adulthood, it would be hard for me to come up with ways in which you, Ima, didn't provide unwavering love. Your demands were always nestled in a blanket of love. You pushed us towards excellence and held us to a high standard, but always with tremendous love. You were a tough critic, and I always seeked your approval because you mean and will continue to mean so much to me. And doing good by you meant so much to me. I wanted you to love me for all of these other things that I wanted to be recognized for because of your commitment to education, because of your love of knowledge and your curiosity. And when I would write letters to Saba, my Saba Moshe Savta Tzipora, and also to you, I would be so pleased when at the end of reading the letter, you would smile and you didn't find any shgiot. Lo afilu shgia achad, yofi. You didn't even have a single mistake. Tons of birthday cards, waiting for anticipation for you to read it, and then compliment me on my Hebrew. I'm sorry I couldn't write this letter to you in Hebrew, but I will aspire to that. On a good day, again, you would gently point out my shgiot at the end of your read, but you always conveyed your pride and love for my trying. Our Hebrew language prowess meant so much to you, as you likely saw it as a reflection of your accomplishments and a celebration of what matters to you most. Ima, one of your bestowed gifts was letting us see that you had no qualms about who you are and how you lived your life. As Liati would say in Guarani, Ima, you were your own jara. You were your own boss. You were resolute in your sense of self-expression, dress, and way of being. You simply didn't care what others thought of you. You highlighted the importance of individualism and didn't care if you didn't conform. Pnina, your childhood best friend, talks about this a lot. And you would often say about yourself, you can take me or leave it. Take it or leave it. You just didn't care. You were you. You were strong in your own skin, irrespective of what was going on around you. And I may not have fully noticed, and certainly not embraced this side of you while growing up. Maybe I was a bit embarrassed. But I now know that I will turn to this gift of yours, this blessing, when I find myself wavering and stumbling because of my focus on others' perceptions of me. You just didn't care, Ima. You were strong and secure. As this relates to your teaching, which I know we've touched upon, you took great pride in being very strict and saying that students were scared of you. And you also took great pride in knowing that you engendered the trust and respect of your students that years later still would come up to you and introduce themselves in a large crowd because you had a great impact on them. I know that you felt that there was no higher honor. You also blessed me with your sense of strength and perseverance. You insisted on doing things on your own and rarely wanted to ask for help, often saying, if I can do this myself, why would I ask for help? You are strong and always will be strong. You were so proud of your accomplishments achieved with your own two hands, at times even eschewing the suggestion of others to come to your side. I now appreciate this not as stubbornness, okay, maybe a little bit, but also as your determination and strength. And while it is true, I am far more likely to turn to help from others than you instilled this strength in me. Ima, you were also so proud of so many of your accomplishments and loved to share your gifts with the world. I'm just going to highlight 3 of your likely most celebrated and prized accomplishments: your love and thirst of knowledge and education, your creative side, and your family, including your kids, your grandkids, your nieces, your nephews. Ima, you were a true educator, a Jewish educator. You loved Chug HaSefer, Chug Chumash, Chug Tanakh, Chug Shirah, Chug whatever. You were always on board, and you were hosting with gusto. You loved to learn, and you loved to be taught. You loved teaching your students, and you loved learning with your community. You're also an artist. You're a creator. I can't count how many endless ktubot, paper cut invitations, jewelry pieces, also the Shabbat challah covers, and all the cooking which allowed you ultimately to bring family and community together. You loved making our Purim costumes when younger. You were a true crafter, a creator, a true artist, and I'm grateful that some of these genes are slowly trickling their way down to me. True to you, and your likely most celebrated accomplishment, is your family, your kids, your husband, your grandkids, nieces, nephews. I don't think there was ever a Savta that was so obsessed with her family. You were known for sharing pictures of every kid, grandkid, with just about anyone who would allow you to scroll through your phone endlessly. And you also did that to all of us. You would pull out your phone and show me all of Tomer and Stacy's kids, and all of Liad and Mickey's kids, and Yela's kids, Ram's kids. You were endlessly gloating, sharing stories of all of your family. And again, this is likely your greatest accomplishment. Your gifts and role modeling did contribute to our family, and these should most definitely be celebrated. And thanks to you will forever live on. Ima, your commitment to family was unwavering and certainly unchecked. You did and would do anything and everything to show up for us, for your family. So how is it that you didn't live through the month of Nisan to celebrate yet one more Pesach with us? After all, you were our Jewish matriarch and our true guiding light for all things Jewish in our family, for creating a Jewish home that celebrated Jewish holidays and traditions. And when I ask myself this question, I'm reminded of what you told Liat and Mickey last year when they hosted Pesach. You told them that you're so proud of them, that you're now at peace with relinquishing this holiday because you know that they will carry on our family traditions in the most perfect way, with the most respect. So now when I think of the 11th Adar and your upcoming Yortzites, for years to come, I understand the juxtaposition. Just like Adar with its miracles and lights, you gave us so many gifts. You gave me so many gifts, and you brought light into my world. I will feel you in my everyday and moments that I'm currently not yet even aware. Ima, your light and miracles will forever live on with me and in all of us. Ima, I love you today, I love you yesterday, and I love you tomorrow. Thank you for being the best, Ima. I sure did get lucky. Love, Lilachi.
Tova's daughter, Liat.
If you guys have heard any themes up until now, I am here to further that trend. I started thinking about what I would say and how I would say it, and imagined asking you, Ima, if I should be sharing my thoughts with you or talking about you. And of course, you said to me, Tasi ma shebalach, do what feels right. So here are some thoughts I want to share with you, Ima. I never knew that scenes of dying could be beautiful. The last few days and weeks have been hard, but there were many more moments that were incredibly beautiful. You were surrounded by the love of your entire family, moving you in your wheelchair to join for Shabbat songs and Kiddush, doing Havdalah around your bed, having your grandkids sit by you, crawl into bed and cuddle alongside you, sharing their favorite Savta stories. We practically sang all the songs from Pesach around your bed one night, and you danced with your hands. I know you were proud, feeling the outpouring of love and adoration we all feel for you. Ima, you were the best, the absolute best Ima ever. You were tough as nails and very caring, and maybe because you were a woman of few words, you taught us by example, not by statements. You lived your values, and here are a few that I'm particularly grateful that you taught me. 1. You showed us all how to be generous and giving, how to live the values of achnasat ochim, welcoming guests, and bikur cholim, visiting the sick. The most quintessential demonstration of this was every few Passovers, you'd come home and say, we need to add a few more chairs to the table. I met someone at the supermarket and they don't have anywhere to go, so they're coming to our house tonight. And this definitely happened more than once. And on more than one occasion, I went with you to Highland Park Hospital on Friday evening to light candles with the Jewish patients sick at the hospital. It pained you to imagine someone alone not celebrating Shabbat, and you felt it was your responsibility to bring them the joy of Shabbat. So we visited absolute strangers to bring a little light into their lives. 2, you instilled a love and appreciation for Jewish values and education. You inserted Jewish and rabbinic wisdom at random and unexpected moments. You often closed your eyes ever so slightly and effortlessly cited different scholars or Judaic phrases. As a kid, you took me to Bethel for all-night Shavuot learning. You loved speaking to your grandkids about Parashat Shavua and seemingly knew all the details behind every parasha. I was always impressed with your knowledge, which was validated every time you spoke with the rabbi and could match their Torah and Talmudic prowess. Even when you and Abba didn't know how you would pay for school, you figured out how to send Tomer, Lilach, and me to a Jewish day school. That was a priority for you, and you made sure we knew how important it was. You were the consummate entertainer. At a moment's notice, you'd invite friends over for dinner. You'd whip up an absolutely delicious meal, all from your head, never using a recipe. You and Abba threw parties all the time. You loved bringing people together, showing them a good time, and feeding them delicious food. Gourmet kebabs with aromatic spices and pine nuts, homemade trina, burekas covered in sesame seeds, double-baked paprika potatoes, fennel citrus salad, baked cauliflower, shawarma chicken, majadara with crispy onions. I could literally fill an entire page with the delicious food you lovingly created. You'd call on friends Friday morning, and several hours later, an impromptu, delicious Shabbat dinner for 10 was served. You built community during each dinner party you effortlessly threw. I am certain your Israeli crew misses your gatherings on your deck and the ornate, colorful dishes you plated your food in. I know I do. You were the absolute champion of entertainers. You taught me the importance of tradition. Even when you and Abba didn't have much money, you insisted on buying us something new for Rosh Hashanah and Pesach. I remember going to Zaire with their bright orange and red design to find something new for the holidays. No questions asked, every single year. Tomer may have invented the phrase shigi bigi, crazy great fun, but you and Abba taught us what it meant. You lived your life like every single day was an incredible adventure. You drove from Milwaukee to Mexico multiple times with your kids in the back of a rinky-dink station wagon because the cost of a flight wasn't going to deter you guys from walking around vibrant Mexican towns, letting your kids jump into the ocean waves, or bartering your way through an exotic market. You and Abba traveled through the jungle of Thailand on an elephant for 3 days. You smiled your way through the Amazon in Brazil, where we traveled as a family in canoes and slept on hammocks in the middle of the rainforest. And because even you have limits, you asked me to hold your hand at night, helping you walk through the trees to find a place to pee. And even if Abba initiated the adventure, you were down with it 100% of the time. Living life seeking the thrill of shigi bigi was etched in your soul. You showed me what true companionship looks like. When Abba was recovering from his cancer, you literally nursed him back to life. You made it your job to feed him, walk with him, fatten him up. You snuck oil into his shakes and shuttled him to every CT scan, chemo, and doctor's appointment. You were always by his side. And in more mundane times, you were always Abba's +1. If Abba had to go visit one of his properties, you were there. When Abba wanted to smoke the hookah at 10 p.m. on a random Wednesday night, you joined him. When Abba had a meeting with the plumber at our new home at 8 a.m., Mickey went downstairs and said, "Tova's here?" And sure enough, you were. You were always along for the ride. I keep saying you and Abba are a buy one, get one, because for as long as I can remember, you always did life together. You instilled a love for exotic fruits, teaching me to love fragrant guayaba, sweet passiflora, and gloopy guanabana, while my peers enjoyed a shiny red delicious. And Ima, most importantly, you taught me not to give a beep. You were 100% yourself all day, every day. You couldn't care less what anyone thought about you. You were happy with who you were, never seeking others' approval or even caring one iota about their opinion. This was your most impressive quality and what gave you your special Tova essence. You were one tough mama who unapologetically lived life on your own terms with no compromises, which is why, repeating again, walking around the Biltmore Hotel in Arizona, you felt it was your duty to pick as many kumquats as you wanted, essentially eating your way through this upscale hotel's perfectly manicured tree-lined walkways. You were always unabashedly yourself. You taught me to be proud of being me and never waver. And now, Mickey has you to thank for Tzipi's balabusta attitude. Ima, you were the best Ima I could ever have hoped for. And the best compliment you ever gave me was telling me how wonderful my kids were every time they slept over at your home. When you and Abba took care of all four of them, you'd make your famous challah French toast in the morning. And you'd call me the next day and you'd say, "Em pashut maksimim." They're simply magnificent. And it was the best compliment because I knew you were also telling me that Mickey and I were doing something right, that you were proud of how I was raising our children. Hopefully, I'll follow in your footsteps. If they feel a fraction of the love and respect I feel for you, I know I will have done something right. I love you, Ima. You and Abba were the best role models ever. Thank you for everything.
Michael.
Hi, my name is Michael A. Rothschild. I'm Tova's first husband. We met 60 years ago, and we had a great life. And the biggest accomplishment for Tova is her kids, grandchildren, the legacy that she is leaving behind her. It's every mother, every person should be very proud to have such legacy. So I had a chance to obviously be with Tova's father, Moshe, and we had a great relationship. My father was a German Jew, very strict, very to the point. And when there was a time that I wanted to buy a car, I didn't dare go to him and ask for a loan. Not for money, but just a loan. So I decided I'm going to go to Tova's father. He's a rich Jewish man, and he's going to lend me the money, which he did. And it was such a crazy situation that my father asked me, how are you going to support all this car? You know, it was Volkswagen bus, 62. And I said, Abba, al tidag, kol yeh beseder. I'm very proud to tell you that I returned the money to Tova's father. So we said in Hebrew, Moshe ad Moshe lo kamtem keMoshe. I'm going to say from Tova to Tova, there was never anybody like Tova. So I had a great life with her. I'm so sorry that she left at a young age of 80. She could have easily had another 10, 15 years together. I planned already a trip, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, to Vietnam, 17 days. No problem. You do whatever you want to do. I'm coming along. By the way, next, I forgot, but what is the season? We're going to Africa. We're going to go to watch the apes in Africa. I forgot the name of the place. Rwanda. Thank you. In Rwanda. We were supposed to go there together. And you know, she's now 80 years old. No issue. Michael, or Michal, like she called me. You do you, I'll do mine. It's going to be okay. So I'm so sorry she really did not have a chance to be here and see all the love and affection that everybody shared here. And when you come back here, when I'm going to be right there, it's going to be a very different conversation here. There won't be Bible, there won't be Torah, there won't be Chumash. It will be something else. And like I always said, I want to have a after ceremony party in the grill. We should all go there, smoke whatever they smoke there. If none of you have been there, let me tell you, the joints there is superb. Different than what you ever, if you ever tried it, different than what you have tried before. So Tovale, I love you. So sorry that you cannot join me for the rest of the life. So remember, when you come back, think about what I said now. It will be different. And one more thing I want to share with you is that you should share with your kids how much you love them every day. Like I said to my kids, did I ever tell you today that I love you? And the answer is no, so I'm repeating, I love you. Do not underestimate the importance of sharing your love with your spouse. It's the biggest message I can give you today. I love you. Thank you.
Michael, maybe I'll have you stay here. And can I invite everybody in the front row? Will you go stand around your Abba and your Saba for a moment? And as we conclude this just incredible series of stories and love about Tova, we talked about how Pesach is coming. And there's a part of the Seder that people miss all the time. It's in the second blessing over the second cup of wine. And we have this prayer, Yagienu lemoadim achebrim. We pray that we're going to get to have another Chag together. And I know how empty that seat is going to feel 1 month from now. And I want to hold on to what you said, Michael, of what does it mean for all of us in that moment to be able to look around our own tables and be grateful for the people we love, to recognize that empty seat, and that our world is not as great because Tova isn't in it. I want to share briefly to her amazing grandkids, to Gabi, to Shiraz, Meital, Erez, Eliana, Mati, Aviv, and Sipi. Your Safta loved you so much. Any moment to celebrate you at birthday parties or your accomplishments. And I am sorry that you are part of this community of Avelim, but I hope during Shiva, amidst friends and family, you hear one new story after another. Tomer and Stacy, Lilach and Andy, Mickey and Liat, the mitzvah of kabed et avicha v'et imecha, of honoring one's parents, is not only one that is in the Torah, it's manifest in the way Tova cared for her parents and what you have done for your parents. You are following in her legacy. 2,500 years ago, somebody taught, Yehudi Tipesh, Ateret zkenim b'nei banim v'tiferet banim avotam, that your kids are the greatest source of pride, and that your children make the parents into tiferet, into a crown. And these grandchildren bring pride, and you, the children, bring tiferet to your parents. And most importantly, Michael, I wanted this moment here where you could see everybody here, and you're surrounded by your kids, because your love for Tova was like in Shir HaShirim, and maybe this will be, see, you know it. Mayim rabim lo yuchlu lechabot et ha'ava. The greatest, strongest waters cannot extinguish the love. Your love was one for the legends. I don't. You're right, I don't.
It was such
You can take it back.
It was such an amazing courtship that we had. It's unbelievable.
And you were with each other in the most joyous of times, and in the hardest of times you stood by each other. So here's my last thing from Tanakh, Tova. We all know the name Tov, and it's an easy word, one of the first words we might know about good. But it's not just good. In Jewish tradition, we read Hakarat HaTov, so if I can have some literary permission from Tova, I want to call it Hakarat HaTova. Recognizing not only the good, but recognizing the Tova. And when we read in Tanakh about Tov, Tov is a perfect, harmonious goodness, where every creation, the number one word repeated in the book of the Torah, the beginning of the book of Torah, is Tov, goodness. That everything God made was good. When Moshe was born, Ki Tovhu, it's because he was good. The person who would transform human history was good. And what is the place that is called Tova? Eretz HaTova, the land that Tova loved. Tova, like God's creations, like Moshe and Tzipporah, like Eretz Yisrael, she was the one who brought harmonious goodness to the world. And our world is dimmer because she isn't in it. And yet you, Michael, and your beautiful kids and your grandkids, you are helping to spread Hakarata Tova, the goodness that is Tova. Yehi Zichra Baruch, may her memory be a blessing. Amen. I'll invite you all to rise for the memorial prayer. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamtzei Menucha Nechona, Tachak Kanfei HaShechina, B'ma'alo Kedoshim HaTorim, K'zohar Rakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat, Tova, Bat Moshe V'Tzipora, Shelcha Li'olama, B'Gan Eden Tei Menuchata, Ana Bala Rachamim, Hasti Reba Seder Knafecha Leolamim, Utzror Bitzor Achem Nishmata, Adonai Unachalata, V'tanuach B'Shalom Al Mishkava, V'nomar Amen.
Everyone, you can join us in your handouts together where it says El Malei Rachamim. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence, among the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament, unto the soul of Tova Rothschild, who has gone unto eternity. Lord of mercy, bring her under the cover of thy wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life, be God's possession, and may her repose be peace. And we can all say Amen. Pallbearers, please step forward at this time.
Ki ata Adonai Matzi El Yom Samta Meonecha Lo Tuvnei